Spot has never seen a mouse or any other form of rodentia. Spot has never encountered an insect or been chased by a canine. And Spot prefers feline supplement 25. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Man, you were spot on.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, cat lover, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation Season 7, Episode 6, entitled Phantasms, written by our pal Brannon Braga, directed by, I wish our pal, Patrick Stewart. This was October 23rd, 1993. Wow, where were you? And how you doing today, Sirach?
Excellence.
Nice. Everybody, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications. If you're listening in, give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. We'd really appreciate that. And visit us at patreon.com/the7th-rule to support the show and, say hi, be a part of the community. Also, lastly, very quickly, very special thanks to Jonathan Capps for sponsoring this episode and this entire season of Next Generation Reviews. Thank you so much, Jonathan Capps. Really appreciate you. All right, Sirach, Phantasms. This is one for the longest time that I know I and others, maybe here and there, thought, I can't wait till Sirach gets to this. My very first question to you is, obviously you've never seen this episode before, but every once in a while you see an episode where you go, okay, so that's what they're talking about when they say this, or okay, now I get it. There are 4 lights. I got it. Have you ever heard one of the maybe top 5 things that Star Trek fans say? Cellular peptide cake with mint frosting.
Never heard it before.
Damn it.
It's not one of those things I've heard. I've heard like, Darmok and Jalad on Tanagra.
Oh, yeah.
Heard that before. So that kind of appreciated, but not this. I've never heard that before. The peptide. Yeah. I wrote it down too because I was like, "Whoa, what is he eating?" Because you rarely see Worf enjoying something that much.
Oh my God. We could do a whole review just on Michael Dorn's acting, like especially like later on when they're like, it's a cellular peptide cake. And Worf goes, mint frosting. He was so happy, man.
Yeah, he killed it. He was very happy eating that cake. I don't know. This episode was like, it was weird to me because it kind of reminded me of a lot of other episodes. It reminded me a little bit of a lot of other episodes. And like, for example, we just saw the Riker episode where Riker was,
Schisms, I think. Schisms. Yeah. And it's called Phantasms. So that's also a similar title.
Exactly. Yeah, I didn't even put that together, but it reminded me of that episode. And then it reminded me of, wasn't there a dream episode that we kept seeing? There was another dream episode.
Yeah, but I can't place it right now. Everybody listening in the comments below, what was the dream episode? I know what you're talking about. I feel like it was season 5.
Oh, you know what? It's not even the dream episode. It was the one where Data had the internal clock and he had to put everybody to sleep or something. Remember? Right.
Okay. I think that was season 5 or something like that.
Yeah. Kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah. That's a good one. So the reason this is kind of a famous episode is because of the cellular peptide cake. Also, this scene here that you can see where they're opening up Data and there's a clock or there's a phone in there. And there's all these jokes about like my new Android phone has unlimited data, right? That's always very clever. But so this is definitely a meme. This scene is definitely a meme that people see all the time. But specifically about this episode.
Telephone man. Mr. Telephone Man. It's an old soul song called Mr. Telephone Man.
I don't know if I know that one. I'll have to
Yeah.
look it up and see if I
Mr.
do.
Telephone Man. Yeah. Old school.
So we had Brandon Braga on the show recently, friend of the show.
Yeah.
And we talked about how he likes to do like the weird things, the scary things, the terror things, the Twilight Zone kind of things. So as soon as you see, you know, the opening and it's super weird and creepy and it's like written by Brandon Braga, you're like, okay, I get it now. Written by Brandon Braga. This was totally his style, right?
It was his style. I enjoyed the mystery of it. I could say that originally, like from the beginning, the opening shot that Patrick Stewart, who I thought did a very good job directing this episode, um, he, he chose a nice kind of hallway walking shot shot with Data and Jordan right off the opening. And the eeriness of the hallway, you know, the way they were curved around when the camera was walking with them, I thought was really good.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the camera shot that Patrick Stewart chose for that walk and talk. And, you know, so right away I thought the mystery was kind of set with that shot. It's not a usual shot. It felt like a dream sequence type of shot. So, you know, instantly I was kind of like, oh, is this a dream? Because,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Jordy was standing against the wall in a weird kind of way as Data walked away. It just felt like a dream. But it felt like a dream because of the camera angles and because of the way they filmed it. So kudos to Patrick Stewart for putting us in the eerie state of mind right away by selecting the proper camera work. So that already kind of got me in because, oh, the other thing that it reminded me of. Do you remember when Data had the dream of his father uh, hammering the?
Yes, exactly that. Yeah. And that was also a dream. And that
Yes.
was in, what was it was in Descent, part 1, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's like the crow flying by
The
and all that
crow.
kind of, yeah.
Yes. Again, they reminded me of that too. So there were multiple things it reminded me of. The Riker episode where Schisms, it reminded me of that moment where Data was dreaming about his Soong and the anvil and all that kind of the crow and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, uh, is this like a repeat or is this a take on one of those? But it was kind of its own thing, you know. It actually reminded me of also the episode where we had our boy Murdoch from the 18.
Yeah, Barkley.
When Barkley was seeing those organisms in the transporter, you know.
Why can't I remember these episode titles? That one is called, hang on, nobody yell it out. Nobody yell it out. It is entitled Realm of Fear. I like to say it like Blades of Steel for those of you that ever used to play that old hockey video game, Blades of Steel. So, yeah, no, it definitely had that. No, I think season 7 comes along, you're going to have a lot of episodes that remind you of a lot of other episodes. You know what I mean?
No, I liked it. It was like a little bit of each of them. It felt like it was, you know, it had the horror aspect, like there was a horror feel there of some of the horror episodes we've seen. There was the dream sequence kind of, you know, aspect of it. There was a lot of aspects there to it. So I thought it was good.
Yeah, I agree. And I thought about you. I was like, this is the kind of episode that's up Sirach's alley right here. So yeah, that's what I was saying. Like when you're in season 7, you're going to recognize things that you've seen before, things that remind you of something else. And it's usually like a fun little experiment where you go, oh, that's like this episode, or that's like that episode, or this reminds me of that. It's almost like a trip down memory lane. Now, of course, this one created these beautiful memes like Deanna Troi being cut as a cellular peptide cake. I mean, that is like legendary. The picture of her as a cake. And then, of course, this one with the smartphone joke that goes on forever. That's an Android. But I wanted to go back to the very opening sequence that you mentioned, which was immediately there's a camera lens situation going on that tells your brain, whether you realize it or not, this is not reality. Whether it is a dream or a hallucination or a program, there's something going on. It immediately gets your attention where you're like, okay, pay attention. Something weird is happening. It's not like if you don't have the camera lens and you just see Data walking along, your senses are not heightened. You're just watching. You're just like, okay, he's going to 10 forward to meet up with somebody or whatever happened. He's going to engineering because Jordy called him there. When you put that camera lens on, you immediately are like, okay, some weird stuff is happening. Something weird.
Yes.
I need to pay attention. There's something
Yes.
crazy. We're already jumping in. This is not a slice of life. You know, he's walking over to do this or meet with. It's like immediately we're in. And, you know, coupled with a little bit of nice music scoring going on there. But I did want to commend also Patrick Stewart because I think this is only his second
or third. It might be his third.
Maybe third, because I feel like his second one, we said that at two.
Yeah.
I was like, I think we remember saying that before too. You're right.
His first one wasn't that great. His second one was good. And this one I think is his third one. And it's also good.
Also the most challenging so far, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. You also mentioned very briefly the scoring, the music, which I thought, you know, really complimented this episode as well. I think when you have these kind of horror dream sequence episodes, the music has to be just right to set the mood. And I thought the mood was very well set with the scoring. I wrote down A+ music, which I do often on this show because they have very good scoring on this show. But this episode in particular really jumped out to me.
Yeah. Now I just looked it up. Turns out it's his fourth episode out of 5.
All right.
So I've probably said the same thing to you 3 times over now, where I'm like, oh, it's the second episode for the 3rd time in a row. But he has 1 episode left that he's directed. So he directed 5 in total. This one is towards the very end of the series, and no spoilers, but it's also one I remember very well. But anyway, so
do you have the list of the first 4 that the other ones that we haven't that I can't remember off the top?
The first one was at the very end of season 4, In Theory. Second one was season 5, Hero Worship. And then season 6, the one that I can't believe we forgot, season 6, episode 8, Fistful of Datas. That was the one I think where we were really talking him up.
And it was Hero Worship, the one with Wesley when he came back.
Hero Worship. No, it was the one where Data saves this little boy, and so the little boy is trying to emulate Data and saying, "Oh, you know, I have no emotions either." And then Data's like doing a weird double comb on his head and all that.
Oh yeah,
that was that one. It was a weird one.
That was a weird one. Yeah. But no, this was a good episode. I mean, actually one of my favorite Brian and Braga ones. You know, I don't know how many Brian and Braga ones we have up to this point, but I thought he did a really good job writing. The only issue I thought Brandon may have had in this story was the B story. The B story was kind of lightweight. It could have been a C story, basically, as far as
I can't even think of what the B story was.
The B story was them not being able to make the conference, the admiral's conference.
Yeah, you're right. That's definitely a C story. That's I guess it is kind of the B story. Because it feels like the A and B story kind of blended together. The A story, it's kind of like 2 A stories with Data's dreams and these things that are going on, these aliens, but those end up coming together because at first the B story with the aliens is impacting the C story, which is the conference. But then it turns out the B thing is really what's going on with Data and the A, and then the C is just the comic relief. But it made me laugh.
Yeah, because there's something about Picard so far. Now we're in season 7, so I got a pretty good grasp on the character, But there's something about the way when he is in a position that he is uncomfortable, it's fun to watch. And I think Luoxana is the first person to bring that out of him. Troy's mom made him uncomfortable, and he would be so awkward because of it. And in this moment, it was Admiral Nakamura who was, and the whole situation of the pending conference, which is funny because it also sets up what his backstory as the captain to me, in that he doesn't really revel in the same pomp and circumstance as the other admirals. Because remember, this is an admiral banquet, so it's kind of a celebration. It's like brass.
Yeah, a lot of handshaking.
A lot of handshaking. It's like going to an award show in Hollywood. It's a lot of self-aggrandizing. And so what this kind of shows us about Picard is that he's not on board with the whole, look how great a person I am, or schmoozing and rubbing elbows and networking. He's not a fan of that. He's more of a fan of just getting the job done.
I bet Riker would be okay with that, though.
I think Riker would have been okay with it.
He'd be like, hey, I'll go in your stead. I'll do it. Troy would do fine there. She wouldn't necessarily enjoy it, but she'd be like, okay, that's fine. No problem, Geordi would be okay with it, striking out.
Would hate it.
Wait a minute. What about Geordi? We have got to discuss Geordi, because there's definitely something going on there. But before we do, let's finish on Brandon Braga here. And okay, so he had written he was in the writer's room for the last 4 seasons, but then the episodes he specifically wrote before this one, maybe like 4 or 5, something like that. He also wrote this one. This is the first one of season 7 that he's written. But then he's got a lot of written bys and story bys in this season. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is kind of his coming out season, where the 3 previous seasons, he was a staff writer. He was in the room, but he would only really write 1 or 2 of the episodes, specifically. Whereas this season, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, he's kind of written 5 of them and then story by a couple others. So that's pretty cool. Is this
the first one of his this season? Okay.
Yeah. And he has some very memorable episodes, in my opinion, coming up. Very memorable. For good or less good.
Yeah, well, one thing that I do recognize in his storytelling style is an adherence to the whole old school model of science fiction storytelling, and it has but with a little twist of horror, I would say.
Yeah.
So he leans science fiction horror to me, which is something that we've seen in, for example, the Twilight Zone, where you would have an episode like the episode where the woman is really beautiful, but she's surrounded by these people that have these weird faces.
Pig faces, yeah.
Yeah. And so, it talked about beauty basically being in the eye of the beholder, and that kind of message was being played out of that script. But it also teetered on the side of horror. And I think that's what Brandon Braga does a great job of when he does his storytelling. To me, it's a form of a good science fiction horror storytelling, kind of a little mix of um, sci-fi and Alfred Hitchcock. You know, just a little bit of the two of them. So I really enjoy his stories. You know, when he first saw that mouth on Jordy's neck, I was like,
Yeah.
"What the hell are we looking at?" It's like, it's like, Data, you're tripping.
I wonder if Brandon was like, I want to write this one. You guys let me in the room. They're like, this is a Brandon episode. He's like, yes, it is. This is a kind of like if it's
Yeah,
Klingons, they're like, all right, that's you, Ronald D. Moore. That's all
yeah.
you, brother.
Mm-hmm.
So this was definitely up his alley. This is definitely a Brannon Braga episode.
Absolutely.
And I did really like you mentioned, that when weird things were happening, they were happening in places where they had those bugs on them. Like Data stabs Deanna Troi, right here. Riker had the straw in his head at his temple. Things like that. There were like specific places where they were. Geordi had one on the back of his neck, and Picard had one on the side of his neck. So I guess they like necks. They like thin skin.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Geordi and what a boy, oh boy. He sure knows how to, boy, he really is, man, oh man. We're going to talk about him. Let's take a break, though, and really collect ourselves and talk about that and a whole bunch more. We'll be right back on the seventh rule. Well, hi there, everybody. Welcome back to the seventh rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello.
Here are the trivioids of the week, because people are clamoring for them. Data catches dudes dismantling a warp plasma conduit. Commander LaForge has completed the installation of the Enterprise's new warp core. Captain Picard has been invited to the annual Starfleet Admirals Banquet. Geordi LaForge does not appreciate Ensign Tyler's enthusiasm. Spot has 12 muscle spasms in 15 minutes while sleeping. Spot prefers feline supplement 25. Data wonders what Spot dreams about. Spot has never seen a mouse or any other form of rodentia. He has never encountered an insect or been chased by a canine. Worf offers Data a bite of cellular peptide cake with mint frosting. Data is the first person who has been excited at the prospect of a new neurosis. Ever since Riker gave Alexander a new music program, he's been playing it all night, every night, and Captain Picard wishes Data bad dreams. Oh my God, there's so much more to talk about. I didn't realize how much there was. Okay, definitely got to talk about the cat Spot, of course. But before we do that, let's talk about Geordi. I thought of you when I'm like, hang on a second. Geordi finally has somebody that has a crush on him. And Geordi's like, ew, gross. Oh, Data's like, oh, you don't share enthusiasm? He's like, no way. Blech. So what is he was
Very
like
good
so
reenactment. I think that's how it was written in the script.
Yeah, that I was reading directly from the script. So I don't know. I thought of you here because we're thinking like,
Yeah.
well, now hang on. Like
Yeah.
if it's professional reasons that you want to keep away, I can understand that. But he didn't say, "Oh no, I'm sorry, Data. It would be inappropriate for me, as her kind of boss to, I'm not comfortable with."
Yeah.
No, he was like, "No way, grody, gross, yuck."
Yeah, I couldn't believe it actually. I really couldn't believe it. I was watching I was like, Jordy, you haven't gotten any action since I've been watching this show, actually. Zero action for Jordy. And I'm thinking, Jordy, well, you finally got a girl that likes you. She's into like tech stuff and all
She's
the
pretty, she's smart, she's
yes.
thoughtful. She took Picard away from this. She catches cues. I'm like, great. She's awesome.
And
Get
she's
her.
into like all of that tech stuff. Like she's like,
Oh,
yeah, I disassembled the photon plasmic array. And it's like he's like, oh god. Like, it was so weird to see. And then I was just like, you know what? That is kind of indicative of life in some kind of ways because it's just some people don't get any of the clues.
yeah.
It's like sometimes what's good for them is right in front of their face and they just can't see it. Um, and that's what it felt like in this situation. Like, there's there's nothing wrong with this girl. She's totally now the thing that would be wrong would be, hey, she's an subordinate of mine, and she's an
Right.
ensign, and she's just getting she's just likes me because I'm her superior officer and a half hour.
Yeah.
If you
Actually,
if you had a
they cut out the scene where Data says, "Oh, is it because you're her superior officer?" And Geordi was like, "No, it's because she's icky." Yuck.
yeah, yeah, if he had said that, then I would have been cool with it. If he
Hmm.
said no, if he had just made a quick little like, oh no, I couldn't do that. That's I'd be crossing the line. You know, there's protocol, something like that, and boom, I would have been like, okay, that makes Jordy is a principled person, but you are not that principled because we've seen your holodeck programs.
Yeah. 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 So I just don't know what was going on with poor Geordi. I just, and I don't blame him. Like, if he has bad luck with ladies, they don't like him, fine, that's one thing. Then, if a girl finally happens to like him, if he doesn't feel that vibe, if he's not down with it, that's cool too. I don't, I'm not going to blame
Yeah,
him for that either. It's just sad that it's like the coincidence of like there's finally a girl that likes him and he's the one that's not interested. And she seems cool. She was cool, you know, but oh well,
yeah. Oh well,
bad luck.
yeah. Poor. And actually, when that happened, I thought to myself, "Is this whole thing a nightmare?" Because I, I was, I
This
was
is
thinking maybe
wait a minute. This is Jordy's nightmare, not Data's.
exactly.
He's like, there's a woman
Uh,
forcing herself on me. Yuck. Yuck.
get her away from me. Yeah, that was so strange to me. But it wasn't well explained, and it was funny because Data's like, "Bro, are you not seeing this?" Even Data was like, "What's wrong with you, man?" She's throwing herself at you practically.
Yeah. So that was a
But
very tiny side
yeah,
quest or D plot, maybe. But of course, that was funny. The weird thing was that there was never any resolution to that. It'll be interesting to know, from the people in the free for all, if there was more in the script. Like maybe they could say the resolution was that she kind of saved the day by pulling Picard away from them. She's like, "Oh, do you want to help us, clean up the cat box or whatever?" She asked me. He's like, "Oh, I'd be delighted." And they're like, "Wow, good save. Thanks, Ensign Tyler." Maybe that's the resolution, I guess. But it would be nice to, for him to say like, "I'm so sorry, but you're in my department." She goes, I transferred to sciences already. And he'd be like, "All right, maybe then."
yeah. But even that was kind of the transition was funny to me. She was like, "Hey, but we could use some help cleaning the toilets down in the sick bay," and he was like, "Oh, sure, let me roll my
Oh, wonderful. Splendid.
sleeves." Splendid. I just don't see Captain being signing up for moving boxes around. It just didn't seem like the captain's up for.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
it
something
should have
else.
been something else, but either way,
So
it was good.
here's another thing. There is a line in this episode that is a top 5 quoted line in the history of all of Star Trek by me. I say a 4-word sentence
Oh God, is it
from
Cal
this episode.
Hutchinson again? Is it Hutch?
Call me Hutch. No, it is Worf saying, "I will feed him," because it's so good. He's like, wait, let me see. I think I wrote it down here.
Oh, that yeah,
But
right. Tell me that because that was a very.
when he says,
First of all, Data with this cat is the cutest thing ever. The
"I
way he was
know,
sitting there watching that cat when it was sleeping, and I thought this guy is so cute with his cat.
I loved
So,
it
but
so
go ahead,
much." Yeah,
give me
he
those lines.
says,
I wrote them down too.
"Will you take care of Spot for me?" And Worf looks petrified. He goes, "Your animal." Just starting
Yes,
right there,
exactly.
we're already having a good scene. Your animal,
Yeah.
and he goes, "Spot, come here." and then And then Data picks him up and he says, "Oh, he's not like a dog, you have to." So he hands him, and then Worf's holding him like he's never held a cat before in his life. And he
Yeah.
says, and then Data says, "He will need to be fed once a day and he will require water. and you must provide him with a sandbox, and you must talk to him, tell him he's a pretty cat and a good cat. And and then Worf stops him and he goes, I will feed him.
Like that's it.
Oh, it is
That's
too
all
good.
you
And then as
get.
he's carrying him out, he sneezes, of course, because he's clearly
He's
allergic to cats.
allergic to cats. Yeah.
One of the best scenes ever in the history of Star Trek. Some people may disagree, but they're wrong.
He says, "I will feed him." Yeah, that was. It's a really good scene. It was a really good scene because it was, he's like, "I don't love this cat as much as you do. But I'll make sure, you know, I'm not gonna go to bed. I'm not gonna let it crawl in my bed with me. That's gonna be. I'm gonna treat it like your animal."
You guys haven't lived if you hadn't had a cat sleeping on your bed with you. Oh my God, it's so good, especially in the winter. They're little warm spots. A really old cat or dog
Well,
might leave a warm spot on a bed too, but that's because their bladder's failing them. But anyway, go on.
Worf could have reassured Data and said, "I will treat him like I treat Alexander."
I
Which
will try to remember that he exists. I, or he could have, yeah, he could have said Alexander, been like, oh, Alexander will be happy to do all these things for him. Meanwhile, I'm going to get back to work. Um, there was another moment that I thought was funny, and it was just Patrick Stewart. I don't even know if he was trying to be funny or not, but it was towards the end when Beverly Crusher was saying, hey, I found what the problem is, and these guys are going to eat away at us until we collapse into a few pounds of, whatever, chemicals, she says. Picard looks at that, and then he turns around to the crew, and he goes, all right, kind of like he delivered it in a way, like the line wasn't funny, but he delivered it in a way like, man, I'm getting tired of this shit. There's every week, there's some weird ass something that I barely understand,
Yeah.
He was just kind of like, all right, well, what do we got this time? That was just a Patrick Stewart. Oh, and he directed it too.
Yeah.
So I wonder if he chose his own favorite take. You know what I
I
mean?
think he did. I think he did. And I liked it too. It was a very good one. And I also liked Riker's delivery when he was like, what did he say? Hey, talk about going nowhere fast. That was a nice little moment, just delivery wise. Um, yeah. And then he also said, Data just really carried this episode, though. I mean, Data was like unbelievably good in this episode. I thought they kind of covered some ideas as far as just, what they were talking about thematically that were really original for me. Number one was uploading dreams into the holodeck and somehow able to patch Data's dreams into a holodeck program. And that right there in itself is like a use of the holodeck that I've never even seen done before. I don't even know if it's been done afterwards, but that seemed like an original kind of use for that holodeck. You know what I mean?
Oh man, and I was just going to bring that up too. One thing's for sure. Uh, Barkley and Geordi do not want their dreams uploaded for people to watch. They're like, nope, nope, I do not like this technology. No, thank you, Sam. I'm not in for this. However, this is something that I know I'm not alone. I feel like everybody's thought this. I wish this technology existed. My entire life, I was like, I wish I could watch my dreams like a movie on the big screen because some of those dreams are freaking awesome. And I want to see them and I want other people to see them. But yeah, maybe Jordy and Barkley certainly would not want theirs projected out for everybody to see. But yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I thought it was an original concept, and the other concept that was touched upon in this episode, which Brian Braga, kudos to him for experimenting and playing with these ideas. The other one is for me was the things that dreams tell us. And they brought in Freud, so obviously he had some kind of level of understanding with the kind of the subconscious and Freudian philosophies on how consciousness works. And
Hmm.
I think that it was a very good blend of using those kind of Freudian ideas about dream analysis and the subconscious, and how it gives us clues about our own life. And I think that was one of the main elements of the story that was interesting to me, because when I have a dream that I think is poignant,
Hmm.
I do my best to evaluate what that dream meant. And I try to look at the symbolism. I try to say, why was I at that location, or what did those people mean for? Why did it, why couldn't I fly? And when I wanted to fly, I couldn't fly, or whatever the thing is that you're trying to analyze about the dream, that you feel like it's a message to you in the conscious space. And I thought that was also well kind of dug into in the story.
Yeah, it also touched upon taking that a bit further. Uh, the phenomenon of when you get a dream that's either unsettling or scary or stressful, it does sit with you for the whole day sometimes. Sometimes you keep remembering it, it keeps flashing. You're like, oh, yeah, I didn't like that. So it was interesting when that happened to Data. They're like, oh, yeah, yeah, that does happen sometimes. We dream about something that we don't like or is
Yeah.
unsettling or weird, and it just kind of drags with us. I don't think that ever drags into a second day, though. I feel like it's just throughout that day, and then you sleep again, and you have dreams of picking apples again, or whatever it is. Maybe that's just my really entertaining dreams.
Well, it usually doesn't drag the second day, but sometimes you get reoccurring dreams as well, and
Oh,
people have the
right.
same dream over and over. And so then that, if it is a reoccurring dream, then it could drag on into other days, because it's something that doesn't go away. It's like you keep reminded of this feeling and these emotions.
Yeah, that's very true. So here's another thing, a couple little bits here. When Data stops the door from closing on the turbo lift, you just see his hand go whoosh, and like stop the turbo lift. You know what I mean? What
Yeah,
Troy was trying to get on there.
yeah,
Beautifully done. That's another Brandon Braga thing, and of course delivered well by Patrick
Patrick.
Stewart directing it. But yeah, that was cool because she's looking back. She's, suddenly this one scene is a horror movie. So I thought that was really good. I
Yeah,
also thought Patrick Stewart's delivery when he and Jordy are in the scene where they're watching Data's dream, and they're like, "What else did you see?" And or before that, actually, Data says, "I saw a straw coming out of your head," to Riker, and Picard goes, "A straw," like almost like disgusted, like what that? Because he says it so matter of factly. It's, "Oh, I saw a straw coming out of your head," and Picard's like, "What the heck is?" It's a dream, bro. Relax.
yeah. And you mentioned, I thought Patrick was did some things that were really good. Um, to make this more suspicious, to make this a little bit more. There was some lighting choices. There was
Hmm.
it was just a really, it had a sense of eeriness to it. When I was watching this episode, I felt like, this is eerie. This is not exactly that predictable of an episode where you can know where it's going. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you know, your first instinct is not to think that there's some parasites that are, infiltrating the ship and everybody's infected with it. That's not exactly the first thing that comes to mind. Um, so yeah, I did like the way the story played out. Um, we had a Nam for Alexander.
Yes, we
I,
did.
I thought Troy was doing a good job of. It was funny because when Data was in that scene with Troy, and she's like, "Data, I think you need to come in and talk about this more often." And he was like,
Right
"Daily?"
now? Yeah.
He
Great.
was like,
Fun. She's like, no.
she's like, "No, we'll do it weekly. Let's start with weekly. I don't want to see you that much." I was like, "Well, okay, that's tough." But yeah, dreams on the holodeck, interpreting dreams, using them as a communication tool. I thought all of those things are just really well done. just conceptually for this science fiction show. Um, you know, it, it it worked for me. It
Hmm.
worked for me. It had just enough comedy. It had just
Yeah,
him telling him he wants feline supplement number 25. I mean, just little things like
so
that worked
cute.
well for me. Yeah.
Also, one final shout out to Brent Spiner. There was a scene where, just a little bit of how the sausage is made for people at home. Sirach knows this better than anybody. You are doing the same scene over and over and over and over again to get the right takes. And then you change the camera angle and you say those lines over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And one thing I always notice, it's a pet peeve of mine, is when actors um, deliver things very differently based, and the shot is different. And I don't mean just the amount that they give, because when the camera's on them, they are performing at a 10. They're giving it all exactly the way they want it to be seen. When that camera's over the shoulder and getting their scene partner, they're basically feeding lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the camera can catch that. And so that's kind of a minor problem. But the other problem I have with it is when they deliver it differently, their head's in a different position now. Like
Mm-hmm.
the camera's on them and they're talking blah, 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 blah. And then cut to over the shoulder and their head's like this. Or they're doing this with their hands when they weren't in the first thing. And so now the editor, you think, okay, well, that's bad editing because they just cut his hands were up here, but now
Mm-hmm.
his hands are no longer up there. But the editor's job and the director's job is they care less about that continuity of the hands and more about performance. They're going to
Mm-hmm.
go with the best
Take.
performance, the best take, exactly, even if it hurts the edit. And most people won't catch it, but sometimes you will. Quick shout out to Brent Spiner because there was a specific scene where he delivered it back and forth exactly the same. So that when they're editing his face and then when they're editing his shoulder, not just in his movements,
Mm-hmm.
but his voice, his audible level, like sometimes people will also say it more quietly when it's over their shoulder because they're not really performing as much, they're just passing the lines over. He said it so perfectly you could not tell the difference, and his lips were moving exactly the same. It was just perfect. So that's a professional actor. It's not easy to do. It's way easier said than done on these long days, but when it happens perfectly like Brent Spiner did, I want to point that out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was, I mean, I'm always kind of in awe of his performances. He makes really good choices.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for example, when he was in the bed and he said, I think I will activate the dream sequence now. And then he does a whole yawn like,
Yeah, that was so Brent Spiner.
yeah,
Huh.
yeah, just just because he thinks that's what people do before they go to sleep,
Right.
and it's so it's just funny. It's a good beat. It's a moment. I don't know if that's actually written in the script or if that's just Brent saying, "Let me have a little fun and play with this." But it's the fake yawn works for me. It makes me laugh. I'm like, this guy is just
Yeah.
he's comedy gold, and he's also drama gold. So it's like, what else do you want?
Because he knows that the fans are translating that as, well, Data is trying to imitate humans. So this is his thinking of
Yeah.
what humans do. And you know what else
Yeah.
humans do? They play baseball. And we've got to decide who gets the home run of today's episode. Sirach Lofton, what say you? Or who say you?
I'm actually gonna say Brian Braga gets the home run on this episode. I like the way it was written, even though it was relatively slow and there wasn't much at stake. I didn't feel an imminent, everybody's about to die in 5 minutes kind of moment. It was a very slow unfolding of a story where you jump right into the middle of it from the beginning, and it's a mystery that slowly evolved in front of your face, and I like that. It's a peel back moment, and I thought it was clever to take Sigmund Freud, as a role model and as a basis for one of the characters.
Yeah.
I thought it was clever for them to upload dreams into the holodeck. I thought it was clever for them to use the dreams as a way to communicate what the answer or resolution to the episode would be. So all of those things worked for me. And Brandon Braga, I think, just scripted together and pieced together a very nice episode. And my favorite line from it was actually a Freud quote, but dreams are the royal road to the knowledge of the mind. And I feel like that's what was the basis for this episode.
Right. It was funny that he kept saying, "Oh, this is about your dad. This is about your mother. This is about this."
Like, no.
But then what about when Troy says, Data, sometimes a cake is just a cake? It's like, yeah, but not in this case. You literally made a cake of Data to symbolize eating him after he ate you. This cake is not just a cake. This is a very weighted cake. So I had a tough choice. I thought there were three people that were very worthy of the home run of the episode. I thought Brandon Braga, I thought Patrick Stewart for his directing and acting, and Brent Spiner. And I'm going to have to lean into Brent Spiner this time, very close. But Brent Spiner, for the reasons I mentioned earlier, home run of today's episode, and also for the reasons Sirach mentioned, the little yawn, this and that, home run of the episode. All right, here's some other people that yawn all the time. Their names are, when they watch this show, Dr. Anne-Marie Siegel, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackman Tom, TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Titus Moeller, Anil O. Palat, Joe Balsarati, Mike Goo, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, the Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Jake Barrett, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde, Julie Manasvi, Jed Thompson, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Glenn Iverson, Dave Gregory, Cassandra G., Mark Zutkoff, Chris Garris, Linda Pages, Steve Case, Stephen Monk, Jonathan Caps, the aforementioned, and of course, Jason M. Oken, who may very well yawn during the free-for-all. Everybody stick around. That is up next. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to The Seventh Rule. This is the free-for-all with Sirach Lofton, of course. Melissa Longo's here.
Hello.
Who reminds us about IDIC. Jason M. Oken is also here.
Hi, everybody.
Mark Zutkoff has 3 iconic pictures with him. Oh, wish we had a third arm. Jonathan Caps is on the bridge of the Enterprise D. And Chris McGee is the Dark Lord, so watch out.
Greetings.
Oh my goodness.
All right. Non-appearance mentions. Sirach and I discussed Alexander for a non-appearance mention. Were there any others, though, that we missed or may have missed?
Didn't Freud talk about Data's dad?
That's pretty good.
Oh,
That's a good one.
Very good.
His mother, I think, as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Spoilers.
Yeah,
Never
but
talk
that's
about
the one
Data's
thing,
mother.
yeah.
We've never seen
This
Data's
is-
mother, though. He doesn't
This
know
is
it.
why I only mentioned the dad.
Shouldn't have brought it up, Jason.
Well, who
Did I jump
else?
the gun here?
Who
Thank
else do
you
you
for
talk
coming.
about with? I guess maybe that's it, right?
Yeah,
Other
it's
no
more
brother.
hypothetical than the actual father, but
Hmm.
we can allow it.
Yeah.
Well, no,
Homer's
I mean,
not here.
If we're talking about O'Brien's kids, he's got 2 of them, so that's a name for Molly and
O'Brien?
yeah. So no, this is what we discussed before during Deep Space Nine, when we were doing.
You're not saying that there was
No.
O'Brien.
So we have clarified that since we know who O'Brien's kids are, if we mention O'Brien's kids,
Yeah.
that's a NAM. Same thing here. If we mention Data's dad, he's got 1 dad.
This conversation's way too nerdy, but you are right. Okay.
You're welcome.
Oh, wait, we forgot about Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score. It's the most important part of the day.
I think this was probably like an 8.1.
Does anybody else have any guesses that doesn't already know what it was on IMDb or is currently?
6.9.
7.2.
Whoa, Jason.
All right. We got a 6.9, a 7.2,
7.2,
and an 8.1. The answer is Mark Zutkoff is the closest, 7.5.
Okay.
You guys were ruthless.
Oh, good job, Mark.
What about some kind of or some sort of? There had to be one or two in this one, right, Chris McGee?
Well, this is another episode with so many unknowns, so it
They had a
spawned
lot.
5 of them.
Wow.
First of all, Troy, as she's helping Data with his nightmares, says, I think we might be looking at some kind of technological problem. And Picard, as he's interrogating Data after he stabbed Troy, says, and what you saw was some sort of a mouth on Troy's shoulder. As Dr. Crusher is examining Troy's wound, says, this looks like some sort of rash. Then a moment later, she adds, there's also some kind of residual interphasic signature.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, Geordi, as he's describing the creatures, says, they seem to exist in some sort of interphasic state.
Whew. That was a lot.
Good job.
Yeah, that was a lot of techno babble there.
Yeah.
All right. Technobabble, sorry. Melissa, will you please get us started off on the right track by telling us what you thought of cellular peptide cake with mint frosting?
Can I just say, and this might be very disturbing, but seeing this episode really made me want to eat cake with mint
What?
frosting. I just wanted cake every time Worf said with mint frosting. I thoroughly enjoyed this episode, actually. It was a hoot. It was fun. I kind of like surreal stuff. So this was up my alley. I like weird, wacky things. And so this was up my alley. I like the comedy in it. There was a lot of it, particularly from Worf. But I also like that Dr. Crusher is sucking out of a straw out of Riker's head. That was pretty hilarious. And then the cat part, that poor cat. Oh my gosh. I will feed him. That was fantastic. Freud was hilarious. Troy was hilarious. There were some really great moments in this, and yes, it's a standalone episode, but it was thoroughly enjoyable. I like it when we don't always have to take ourselves so seriously all the time. It's nice to let our hair down and eat cake, and whether it's Troy or not. Sometimes a cake is just a cake. So yeah, that's what I have to say about it. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
Good job, Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
He did a good job at the directing.
Deanna as a cake. Troy or false? Thank you very much, Melissa Longo. All right, Jason M. Oken. What's up? How you been? What do you think of this episode?
It's kind of interesting. It frankly grew on me over the years. It was never a favorite, but I for a long time I grouped it together with Schisms of the year past. It's one of those Brandon Braga specials, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
If you see an episode like this and don't even know which one of the staff writers on Next Gen wrote this, you can be pretty sure it's Brandon Braga's episode. It's sort of a mixture of goofy and amusing and weird. And frankly, I think it stands up better than it has in Your Right to. And mostly because of the humor in it. I think Melissa, you said it. It really doesn't take itself too seriously. And that's when the problem is, when an episode like this takes itself too seriously, that's when it becomes unwatchable. There's certainly unforgettable imagery. I mean, so, Troy is a cake, and that's something that's hard to forget. I guess the psycho-style turbolift stabbing is something that's hard to forget as well. I think there's a bit of that kind of weirdness and terror to it. Anything that has Brent to do a lot of different things is tremendous. I think the fisheye lens use at the very beginning was interesting. The dream sequence. My recollection is that Trek didn't really want to do any dream sequences, and that sort of kind of failed toward the end, and all these things started creeping in. I wish there was a little bit more sort of creative use like that in the holodeck scene at the end, because he was kind of played straight. It should have been just a little bit different. They could have done something a little bit differently there. But again, it moves pretty fast, and I think this may be the last time we see Spot as a he. I think he changes sex after this episode, but this whole thing about
I wish we could have seen Sirach's reaction when he said that. Like, wait, what? Don't worry about it. You'll see.
Just tell him he's a beautiful cat.
Boy,
He's a smart cat.
A pretty boy.
Worf is a terrible cat sitter if that's the case.
Well, he came in. Came
We
in.
have an
came out a she,
explanation at last.
He does have a bat left, right?
Yeah.
So
Jeez.
that's, that's exactly what happened, and I'll keep it at that, and I'll save the rest for later.
Jeez.
Wow, what a tease,
Wow.
everybody! You only have to wait like a dozen episodes or so to find out what Jason Moken is talking about. All right, Mark Zutkoff, how you doing? What did you think of this episode?
Well, the pleasant surprise, as Melissa said, is Patrick Stewart's direction. It's more assured than some of his previous efforts. The title does not help this episode. In fact, it's vague enough that when I see it, it doesn't ring a bell.
Oh, no.
But as the teaser begins with the fisheye lens, I remembered we were revisiting Data's dream program from Birthright Part 1. But where that episode had an inspirational image, this one goes straight to creepy. Those workers attack Data with no sense of humor, but they're pulling his leg and his head. We give Barclay a hard time for creating versions of his crewmates in the holodeck, but Data clearly likes creating famous scientists and doctors. Newton, Einstein, and Hawking in Descent Part 1, and now Dr. Sigmund. I'm afraid I'm underwhelmed by that doctor's competence. He's more interested in booking therapy sessions than actually helping. Of course, by the end of the episode, his reputation is shot. It's clear that Riker is enjoying Picard's discomfort with the Admiral's invitation/command to attend the annual Starfleet Admirals banquet, which our captain would prefer to skip. Perhaps if Picard had brought cellular peptide cake, that would have pepped up the gathering. Geordi suffers again. This time a woman likes him, but he doesn't reciprocate. But she does him a solid by distracting Picard when he's getting on Geordi's nerves. After Data's actions in the two-part descent, it makes sense that he would be worried about his violent behavior in his dreams, sleeping and waking. Confined to quarters, we get the hilarious scene with Worf, Data, and Spot. But the capper is where Worf sneezes as he carries Spot out of Data's quarters. Great. Troy is a bit more helpful than earlier this season when she counsels Data, and for her trouble, he attacks her. But that provided the clues to discover the real threat of the episode. Props to the prop department for the recurring imagery of the serrated knife. You'll note I have cellular peppered this review with puns, but I have a home pun as well. I enjoyed watching this and laughing a lot, so I had to increase its serratings in my TNG episode rankings.
You got some applause. Well done. Well deserved, Mark Zutkoff. Thank you very much for that. Jonathan Caps, good luck following that act. What do you think of this one?
So this is definitely like a weird and strange episode, even a little, disturbing at times, but I did like it for the most part. I felt like, the concept of an android having nightmares is actually certainly an interesting one. And, it was a nice callback also to, Birthright Part 1. But I would have liked a little more, explanation for how he was able to kind of incorporate the dream program, to his regular routine. And like others have said, it's not at all surprising that Brennan Braga wrote this one. I really liked, the entire subplot of Picard, kind of dreading the annual Starfleet Admirals banquet, and how Picard's, managed to be able to get out of it every year so far. And, and just his description of how, boring and monotonous it is, and apparently even the food's not very good. And then the scenes with, Admiral Nakamura, being very skeptical of, Picard's excuses, even at one point suggesting that does he need to send a tow ship, to bring their prize in. And then, that scene where Picard, he's trying to make himself useful in engineering, but then only succeeding and annoying everyone, and then, and slowing the actual work down. And then finally, at the very end, Picard, telling Geordi, not to rush, he wouldn't want to sacrifice the safety of the ship. So once again, he gets to skip out on the Admiral's banquet. LaForge, I did like LaForge kind of getting a taste of his own medicine, with Ensign Tyler's, enthusiasm. Where he says, it's beginning to get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, he should know what uncomfortable is, since he's usually the way around, I did like when Data was like, I would be happy to talk to her. And he's like, no. But, like Mark said, Tyler, she redeemed herself by giving Picard a task, at the end to get him out of Geordi's way. Although I do have one question. Why doesn't Geordi like her back? She seems like she would be right up his alley. But, and then I did like that Spot, does feature, a lot in this episode. I like the scene where Data's kind of staring at Spot while he's asleep, trying to figure out, what he's dreaming about. And then, of course, as everyone's mentioned, Data, the whole scene with Data and Worf, and Data saying, I want you to talk to Spot. Tell him he's a pretty cat, a good cat. And Worf's just like, I will feed the cat. And Data's like, well, perhaps that's enough. I did like Data kind of preparing to how he prepares to sleep, kind of his over-exaggerated motions there. And of course, I loved all the mentions of the cellular peptide cake where Worf just keeps chiming in, with mint frosting, in the dreams. And then Data kind of describing his own dream by saying, strange is not a sufficient adjective to describe the experience. That was pretty good. And then of course, Data being kind of the first person that Troy's ever seen is excited about the prospect of a new neurosis. He even seemed like he wanted to have daily therapy sessions. And Troy's like, no, I think we'll start with weekly. Just another kind of fun observation. Apparently Worf really hates jazz music, and he's mad at Riker for introducing Alexander to that. One thing I wasn't a huge fan of the Sigmund Freud scene. I mean, it was somewhat funny, but it also kind of a little over the top and kind of pointless. But I did I liked when Troy told Data, it's like you could come to me next time, or you should come to me next time. It's like there is a counselor on board. He's like, you don't have to go back to create someone from the past, especially someone that doesn't even know, obviously, Data's, history. And then I did like at the end, Troy bringing a cake of himself, of Data. Although, I'm not sure that I would hand a knife to someone that had previously stabbed me before, though. So, while the plot, it might be a little weak and maybe the resolution a little too simple, I thought it was a good episode. I enjoyed it, and it kept my attention throughout.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Great stuff as always. Jonathan Capps on the bridge of the Enterprise D. Chris McGee is the Dark Lord. What did you think of this episode? Do you love it?
I have to say the concept behind this episode is interesting, and I enjoyed it. I'm glad they decided to explore Data's new dreaming capability by giving him nightmares. And they prized the use of the wide-angle lens they used in Birthright Part 1 when he gained the ability to dream. I'm not sure it's one of the highlights of the season, though, but it has many elements I like in the production, such as mystery solving and disturbing imagery similar to Schisms, as Jason mentioned. Speaking of, the idea that parasites could be on your body feeding off of you and you can't even see them? Nope. And the idea of having my dreams on view in a holodeck for others to see? Also nope. Now, if I could have it record certain dreams that I could then play back later when I'm conscious, maybe. Now, I understand it was probably hard to focus on the scenes with the workmen because one of them was an absolute smoke show with that incredibly handsome beard. And we finally get a more interesting replacement to that boring old dilithium chamber cover that will be used for the remainder of the series. One thing that amused me, besides Dorn's mint frosting line, is every time the ship failed to go to warp, I was reminded of the scenes actually in The Empire Strikes Back when the Millennium Falcon kept failing to go to light speed. And the last thing that caught my attention was near the end. So the new warp core has a conduit that was manufactured by Thanatos. No wonder it almost killed them all. And for my memorable quote of the episode, well, the cake line has already been mentioned by everyone else, so I'll go with my second choice, which is, "This ought to be a lot of fun."
And it was. It's kind of like I got a bad feeling about this, but the more positive spin. Thank you very much, Chris McGee. All right, Jake's final take. Sirach, any final thoughts on this episode? Another episode with the ISMS at the end of it. Wait, no I.
So did you get an SMS message?
Now, I thought it was interesting, that when Data has this dream about these guys that are tearing through the conduit wall or whatever, they seemed like they were from the Gangs of New York period of time. They weren't futuristic looking people. They were like, I don't know, it felt like throwback looking people, if that makes any sense. And then it made me think of the other dream that he had with his dad, Dr. Soong, and he was like in a period piece with an anvil chopping away. And I thought, why does he always dream about people in a date period that's not relevant to the date that he lives in? Do you know what I'm saying? It's like me having a dream about horses and carriages in the 1800s and people are dressed, like that's not relative to my own life. So it just seems weird that you would constantly be having these people in your dreams that don't actually look like they come from that century. So that was kind of strange to me. Just the costuming choices that they decide to use for those guys look like a period piece that it could have been. You could have told me that was in the 1900s or 1800s, and I would believe you. I do like the idea of dissecting dreams and using them as communication tools, because I feel like there is power in dreams, and I do think that they communicate messages to us. And I think that, in this particular case, they were using Data as a newfound ability to dream to basically say that he has the same ability that we have in our dream state, which is to pick up on certain things in our conscious world, in our subconscious mind. And I think that was really interesting for me as far as exploring that idea. I like that because that is along the lines of Freud and those kinds of concepts when you talk about the subconscious, the unconscious, and how those things interrelate. So this might be one of the first episodes I've seen that deals with that as a subject matter at all. And could it be even better? Yes, I wasn't the biggest fan of the Freud stuff because it was a little too comical. It would have been better if it was actually a real serious debate, and he was coming to logical conclusions that were, maybe better suited for the time. But I did like that Troy was like, come to me first before you go talking to the hologram Freud. Then, I'm here for a reason and I'm here to help you. So I like that as well. I just felt like this episode had a lot of the kind of day-to-day kind of friendship conversations that I like to see on Star Trek. So just Geordi going back and forth with Data about, hey, that girl's into you. Just like those smaller kind of small talk conversations I really like, because it just gets me, it's like that workplace, small talk that feels familiar and it feels like you actually have a long relationship with this person. So I like this episode. It wasn't the best. There were some moments that were a little slow, but kudos to Patrick. I thought he did a good enough job to keep it all tight together. The music was fantastic for me as well. I there were a few moments that I noticed that the musical cues really accentuated the emotional note of the tone of what we were seeing on screen. So very good blending and matching there. Yeah, and the only thing I can say is I have seen recently also the pictures of celebrities at events where they're eating cakes that look like people, and and it was disturbing for me when I first saw these images of these celebrities at these events, and they're eating these humanoid-looking cakes, and I didn't realize that they may have actually gotten it from this very episode because I don't know if there's an on-screen visual of a human-looking cake prior to this appearance in this Star Trek episode. But if you Google those images of those parties, and you'll see people actually feasting and eating these little pieces of cake, and it's a little disturbing for me. And there's also short clips of those same kind of cakes that they make for animals, and they show, the owner of an animal cutting the cake in front of the cat or dog, and to see the reaction that they have when they think that it's actually somebody's cutting up an animal. And so I don't even know where the idea of making these kinds of cakes that look realistic and look like you're eating some flesh, but it's a little disturbing for me. And having seen it in this episode, this made me think maybe this is the origin of even of that kind of idea. So kudos, because it was disturbing, and that's what makes good horror. So I thought that was good job by Brandon Braga.
Yep. This is definitely a Sirach Lofton episode in my mind. This is right up your alley, Sirach. All right. That's it for the free-for-all, everybody, if you can believe that. Thank you to Chris McGee, Jonathan Capps, Mark Zutkoff. Make a joke for once, Mark, will ya? Jason M. Oken, Melissa Longo, for myself, Sirach, Melissa, and Mr. Aaron Eisenberg. Thank you all very much for hanging out with us. We'll see you next time. And until then, always remember the seventh rule.